We also, advance critical, industry policy advocacy. And, we've in our very short time of existence, tried to work on our strategic engagements across the oil and gas sector, the power sector, the mining and extractives industry, as well as the sustainability sector. And today's webinar is what we'd like to call uh, the first in our, periodic webinar series, where we gather young lawyers together and, try to have conversations, important conversations. And this first edition is what we like to call an eye-opener. We have gathered a very diverse, panel of speakers. We have a speaker from one of the biggest law firms in the country. We have a speaker from one of the largest energy companies in the world. We have someone from a very successful indigenous energy company. We have someone who has excelled in academics. We have a speaker from the public sector, although we're witnessing a transition from public sector to a government business and treated like any other business. We have a speaker from the sustainability scene. So I am very excited and honored to, have this conversation and hear people's perspectives, hear people's stories, anecdotes, what they did to be where they are today, and their advice for us, right? So without wasting further time, I would like to invite the um, chair of the NBA-YLF Energy and Sustainability Working Committee, Mr. Tema Fortune, to give opening remarks. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Tayo, for that beautiful introduction. So I'm just going to go ahead and appreciate everyone who's on this call. First, our speakers, it took a lot to gather 5 really top masterful guys who are doing well in their various fields. So please confirm that I can be heard so that I'm not speaking out of turn.
Yes, you're very loud and audible. Please go ahead.
Right, thank you. So my appreciation is first of all going to our speakers, from Ms. Tommy Omotaya to regional to Endurance Agbo to Adaku Ferry and Chineye Ajayi. Thank you for taking the time to be here to come and speak and impact to young lawyers. As the meeting goes on, more and more persons will be onboarded. And of course, we're going to have this session uploaded on YouTube so that young lawyers can always go back and see. We're trying to democratize as a committee access and easy entry into this industry. So as a young lawyers committee under the YLF and in line with the YLS vision led by Timothy Clement, the chair of the Governing Council, as a specialized body of the YLF, we're all about democratizing access. So one key way to do that is to ensure that we create the platform, the opportunities for young lawyers to be able to learn in bits and pieces. And build that capacity to be able to deliver. There's no reason why there has to be a place for talent development and redevelopment over and over again. So that I don't take much of your time, welcome everyone to this committee. Please take advantage of the opportunity to learn. I'm going to just invite the chair of the Governing Council, Mr. Timothy Clement, the one who has given us the opportunity to be here, who has created the platform, that has come and said, no, under my administration, the YLF will grow just more. So Mr. Timothy Clement, please, we'll invite you to just give a very brief remark, appreciating our speakers and charging the way forward before we go on to start inviting our speakers.
Okay, thank you. Um, Let me be sure that everybody is hearing me. Please, Mr. Toma, are you hearing me?
Loud and clear, sir. Very, very loud and clear.
Yes, please go ahead. Yes.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Toma, the chairman of the YLF Energy and Sustainability Committee. Good morning, your esteemed members.
All right, I think there's a network glitch. I'm not hearing Timothy anymore.
Yes. Timothy, if you can hear us, we can't hear you. So we can hear you now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, please. Please go ahead.
Okay, so let me say again that this is the first of its kind with respect to the YLF as a forum. Um, Let me appreciate the chairman of the committee for such, an innovative idea and program he has been able to bring in as the chairman of the Energy and Sustainability Committee. Um, of course, I'm not in a good mood. I have just lost my dad. In fact, I'm speaking from my community, so that's why I was able to um, stop the video session of the Zoom. For us as a governing council, when we came in, we had identified
Think we lost Timothy again. Which is fine because we can take his remarks at the end of the session. So Timothy, um, I mean, if you can hear me, we're very sorry for your loss. Our condolences are with you. Um, we wish you strength and we send you a fortitude. But we'll come back at the end of the um conversation and we'll just take you as our closing remarks. Hopefully the network reception would be better then. Thank you very much.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Timothy. All right. So we're going to launch into the section proper now. I understand that we're streaming live on YouTube, so we have folks joining the live stream as well. Um, but a few ground rules for the participants that are here. This is going to be very engaging. We want to have a conversation, so please, the chat window should be busy. And I think Mr. Thomas Fortune has told me that we have some sort of reward system for the most engaging participants for today. But let's use the chat window as often as we can to say something, to talk, to add comments, to add questions. We would collect the questions when we get to the Q&A session. But let's use the chat window for anything we want to say, and feel free. There are no stupid questions. Um, all right. So, but before I, introduce our speakers and call on them to share their opening speeches as well, I would, like for us to do some sort of icebreaker. Just a quick icebreaker to set the tone, right? I would like, each and every one of us here to, describe what they think of Nigeria's energy sector, the future of Nigeria's energy sector in one word, right? Just no explanations, just one word, right? Um, I mean, so what do you think? If you ask me, I would say evolving, right? That's a word I would use to describe Nigeria's energy sector. What word would you use to describe Nigeria's energy sector, right? So, I mean, Chidiebere, Cynthia, David, Deborah, promising. Yeah, I've gotten promising. Any other person? Domitila, what do you think? Just put it in the chat window and then I'll blot it out. Um, hmm, innovative, transformation, interesting. Specialized, interesting. Fledgling, you would have to explain that, Francis. Uh, but yeah, we'll take that. Okay, all right, we'll take that. Keep them coming, advancing, keep them coming. And I'm going to invite the first speaker. Yeah, actually, if this was a one sentence, icebreaker, I would have said, "Let there be light." So that would be a sentence that I would use. Let there be light. We need that, right? That has to be a key feature of Nigeria's energy future. Um, so yes, our first speaker for today is, someone I'm very honored to present to you. Very well respected in the industry. Her name is Tomi Omotayo, and I'll just quickly run through her speaker bio, right? She's a member of the executive management team at Matrix Energy Exploration and Production Company Limited. Matrix Energy is a leading indigenous oil and gas company. And at Matrix, Tomi Omotayo leads the legal advisory, supply chain transactions, and regulatory compliance functions. Before joining Matrix Energy, she built a remarkable career at Niger Delta Petroleum Resources Limited, now Ardell Energy Limited. For those of us who have been following the news, we would know that one of the key wins of last year was that Maradel, got listed. So we now have Maradel Holdings PLC, who is the parent company of, Ardell Energy, where Tomi Omotayo went on to become company secretary for both Niger Delta Refineries Limited and Niger Delta Gas Limited. So both of those companies are now called Ardell Refinery and Ardell Gas, right? And in addition to our role at Matrix, Tommy serves as the sector secretary for gas and power at the Women in Energy, Oil and Gas. And she's also an active member of several respected organizations, including the NBA, the Nigerian Gas Association, the Society of Corporate Governance in Nigeria, and Chartered Institute of Directors Nigeria. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to, give a virtual applause as I welcome to the podium Ms. Tomi Omotayo. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Omotayo, for the introduction. I thank the Energy and Sustainability Committee of the Nigerian Bar Association, Young Lawyers Forum, for the opportunity to speak at this webinar. The topic we're considering today is timely, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much. So in terms of opening remarks, how many minutes do I have so that I'm guided?
7 minutes, ma'am. 7.
Thank you. Thank you. So as the energy industry grapples with challenges like environmental issues, contractual disputes, and regulatory compliance, legal expertise is indispensable, and lawyers need to go beyond the legal advisory role and hone themselves with skills to function as strategic business enablers. Now, the real question is how young lawyers can strategically position themselves to bring value to the table and be recognized as strategic business partners. To discuss the strategic insights and pathways, I want to use the acronym LEARN, LEARN. Now, L stands for learning. Learning is a continuous and lifelong process. For you to be a lifelong learner, you need to do the following. Firstly, embrace opportunities for vertical and horizontal growth in your organization. I'll give my own example. I had the opportunity to pivot to another department 1 year after I joined the industry, but I backed down because I wanted to build a robust foundation in the legal space. In retrospect, if I had taken the opportunity at that time, that would have deepened my technical knowledge early on. So let's take all the opportunities that are thrown at us that we have the chance to take. Secondly, when you're in meetings, please ask questions, make contributions, volunteer to do tasks, even outside of your own department. That helps you in building your skills and your competence. Join associations like the NBA-YLF forum if you haven't joined yet. Also join other associations, other industry associations, and attend various webinars and industry events that these associations offer. Basically, this cumulatively builds your knowledge and enables you to understand the end-to-end value chain of the industry. You're then able to apply the knowledge you gain to the work you do. Then seek advanced learning and certifications. Also leverage on learning resources on the internet like Coursera and other learning resources. Now, the E stands for emotional intelligence. One of the soft skills you require to thrive in the industry is emotional intelligence. Learn people management because you will need the support of your colleagues in the work you do. You need to manage upwards, you need to manage sideways, you need to manage downwards. Build healthy relationships with your superiors, your colleagues, your subordinates, respect them and know your boundaries. No man is an island, you're certainly not self-sufficient. So it's important to master the art of communication and working with people in a way to get the best value, support, and assistance that you need. Also work at giving the best value too. Remember that your competence or skills get you into the room, but your attitude will keep you in the room and also make you recommendable. A stands for adapt. Adaptability is key. The energy industry is evolving, and so should you. Adaptability is an in-demand job skill that you require. You can become champions in ESG compliance, data protection strategy, AI, governance, risk management, energy security. In the words of Folake Soetan, that's the CEO of Ikeja Electric, the biggest risk isn't failure. It's standing still while the world changes around you. R stands for resilience. Now, this speaks to tenacity, to grit, to consistency, to a never give up attitude. As a young professional, there is the tendency to feel you are undervalued and unappreciated, but it's important for you to understand that the knowledge you gain brings value first to you as a person. And then it's basically from this value that you are able to give to the organizations that you work with. So you carry this value with you wherever you go. Take ownership of your career growth. Then you also want to have SMART career goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. You want short-term, mid-term, and long-term career goals. You want to build a plan. You want to allocate time to your goals, maybe 15 minutes every day. And then by the time you compound the efforts over a period of 1 year, you'll be amazed at how much you have achieved. Goal setting must be intentional. You also need to put in the hard work on a consistent basis. Also evaluate yourself on a periodic basis and continue to tweak things as you progress. Remember, it's a marathon, it's not a short sprint. So pace yourself and enjoy the process. In your journey of becoming, let competence and excellence be your watchword. Then the N word, which is the last word, is network. You've heard your network is your network. So network with intentionality, with consistency, make it a lifestyle. Start building relationships from now, not when you need help, because you will certainly always need help. Build and expand your professional network. When you attend events, connect with industry people. You can also connect on LinkedIn. It's a valuable resource. It's a global platform. It's a stage that enables you to build your personal brand and also grow your network. In today's digital age, a strong online presence is non-negotiable. Over time, you can choose a niche in the industry, share industry insights, make valuable contributions to posts of industry peers, industry leaders, and industry event organizers in a way that communicates value on LinkedIn. Be well-rounded. Build professional relationships with your stakeholders, as relationships are key. You need coaches, you need mentors, you need sponsors. Your career coach identifies gaps and provides a plan to fill the gaps. Mentors offer guidance, wisdom, and provide invaluable insight and perspectives. Sponsors speak for you when you're not in the room. So it's learn, it's remember, it's learning, it's emotional intelligence, it's adaptability, it's resilience, and it's network. Am I out of time, Omotaya?
Almost.
Okay, so let me give you the bonus tips. What are your core values? If you want to build a legacy, you need to have core values that drive your thinking and decision-making. Honesty, integrity, let professionalism guide you in what you do. Your well-being matters, ensure you balance your work and well-being exercises. You need to sleep, you need to rest, then have a tribe. It's important that you surround yourselves with positive people who believe in you, people who can basically give you constructive criticism, feedback, and cheer you on. Thank you very much. And that'll be.
Thank you very much. Thank you for, starting us off on a very lovely note. I would like to characterize everything you have said as the non-negotiables, right? It's very important. If you're here listening to us, these things, right? Learning, networking, adaptability, they are the non-negotiables. And if you want to, position yourself for a successful career in today's world and age, all of these tips are non-negotiables, right? Thank you very much for, starting us off on those notes. So I would like to, invite the next speaker. And our next speaker is another, you know, woman that I'm very proud to bring up. She, like I said, we have a very diverse panel. You've heard from Tomi Omotayo, who is a core oil and gas, upstream oil and gas expert, although she's done work across, the midstream and all of the various streams as well. Next person I'm bringing on is someone who has made a name for herself in the sustainability space. I'm talking about over 15 years of experience advancing energy policy, renewable investments, climate resilience, and sustainable development across Africa. Currently, she's with the Sustainable Energy for All, where she manages donor coordination for Mission 300. And for those of you wondering what Mission 300 is about, is an initiative aimed at, connecting 300 million people in sub-Saharan Africa to electricity by 2030, which is 5 years from now. So very ambitious initiative. And I mean, this is done in partnership with the World Bank, the African Development Bank, the Rockefeller Foundation, and so on and so forth. And, there, our speaker, is helping to drive large-scale efforts to accelerate energy access across the continent, right? Before that, she was the first African to lead a Power Africa program as chief of party in the USAID Power Africa West African Energy Program, right? 5 year, $74 million project. And she oversaw a team of 150 people across several countries, facilitating renewable energy transactions, that mobilized over $9 billion in investment. I mean, you guys, at this point, let me just, present to you the wonderful Adaku Ufere. Thank you very much for joining us. and welcome to the stage. Thank you.
Hi, Tayo. Good morning.
Hello.
Thank you
Good
for having
morning.
me. Hi, everyone. It's great to speak with you all today. So my speech today, I guess all our opening addresses, is supposed to center around providing practical insights on pathways for young legal professionals. And I don't think there's a better way I can do that than by sharing my own story and my own journey, because it's been quite unconventional. So my career has not been linear. I started out as an IP lawyer. I moved into maritime law and finally ended up in oil and gas law. Along the way, I did some fashion and entertainment law. Fun fact, I reviewed Correde Bello's first ever contract with Maven. And now I manage donor-funded renewable energy and electricity access programs. Right, sorry. So that's my career in a nutshell. Now, to break down that further and like really track my path from A to Z, I started off my career at Adik Caxton Martins Agbo and Shegun, where I did a bit of IP law, maritime law. And that year was 2010, and that's when Diezani Alison Madueke became Minister for Petroleum. Now, regardless of how it ended, her appointment as the first female Minister for Petroleum and consequently OPEC president was immensely inspiring to me. So I immediately wanted to get into the oil and gas sector. So I quit my job and I moved to the UK to get a master's in oil and gas law. Now, I don't recommend quitting your job on a whim, right? I did it because I had an immense amount of privilege. I had parents who paid my bills, so I could afford to take those types of risks. So I moved to Aberdeen, I get a master's, I come back to Nigeria, and I join General Electric as an in-house legal counsel in the oil and gas business. I did that for 3 years, and then my contract ended. Shockingly, GE had declined to renew my contract and instead offered me a role that would have placed me in an early career program. This is me like 4 or 5 years into my career. So I turned the offer down and I decided to start my own legal consultancy business. So this is where I did a lot of fashion law, a lot of entertainment law, like the contract with Correde. And all this time since law school, I had been a fashion blogger as well. So I had a fashion blog that I started in 2008, and I was actually one of the first people in Nigeria to make money off the internet. So in that time, after I left General Electric, my blogging took off. I worked with a lot of brands, international brands like American Express, with DSTV, with New Look, with River Island. Anyway, so in this time, I see an ad for a job in Equatorial Guinea, and it needed a lawyer who spoke Spanish and French, and I speak neither. I speak English and Igbo, and that's it. But I applied anyway, and shockingly, I got it. And I think that's a lesson to be learned here, that apply. Whatever it is, even if you think you're underqualified, you never know. Like, they literally wanted someone who could speak Spanish and French. I couldn't speak. I applied anyway, and they loved my interview so much they decided to hire me. And in 2 weeks, I had moved to Malabo, Equatorial Guinea, and set up shop. So in that role, it was a law firm called Centurion Law Group. I started out as a senior associate, and then in 4 months, I was made the head of the energy practice. And then I moved to Johannesburg, South Africa, to work at the head office. And so I worked between Johannesburg and Equatorial Guinea for about 3 years. And in that time, I handled a lot of landmark deals. I traveled around the continent. I lived in South Sudan. I drafted the Local Content Act for South Sudan. I did the amendment, I think, for the Local Content Act in Equatorial Guinea. I wrote the mining law for Equatorial Guinea, like the current mining law. I set up the National Mining Company in Equatorial Guinea. I also represented the Ministry of Mines and Hydrocarbons in EG and the Ministry of Petroleum in South Sudan. And then finally, my last hurrah was I led the biggest oil and gas deal in Africa at the time in 2017, which was the structuring for the financing of a $2 billion floating LNG facility in Central Africa. So all of this culminated in me winning Attorney of the Year at the African Legal Awards. So in 2017, I was literally the best lawyer in Africa. And I think the lesson to be learned there for me was that when a lot of Nigerians want to scale, they go to the US, they go to Canada, they go to the UK. I went to a tiny country in Central Africa. I went to Equatorial Guinea. And what I learned by that is that a lot of Africans are country experts. We know a lot about our countries, not a lot about other African countries. And if you go to, say, Gabon, Sao Tome, Gambia, all the places I've been to, there's a huge demand for excellence that Nigerians can bring, but Nigerians don't really go there. And if you did, you're about to become like the biggest fish in a very little pond. And I learned that very quickly. And by moving around so much within the continent, I gained the Africa experience that most foreigners have and Africans don't have. I mean, you can drop me in the middle of Burundi and I can find my way around because I've done business there, in Djibouti, wherever it is. So it's a lesson there in the sense that don't necessarily look outside the continent if you're wishing to scale, look around you, sometimes it works. In 2018, when I was still at that firm, I was offered an equity partnership, but I opted to leave the firm. It was a bit of an abusive environment and I just wanted to try different things. So I decided to take a year off from work. I did a bit of consulting, and in that time, I did a few fellowships. And so these have really helped me in my career because I did a Mandela Washington Fellowship. I was an Obama Foundation leader for Africa, and I did a Yali Power Africa Fellowship. And through that, I gained a massive network of other Africans. I gained a massive network in the development sector, which led to my current role. And so in that time, I was still doing oil and gas, but I thought I wanted to do a bit of a pivot in the energy industry. And I started working more in renewable energy, energy and gender, energy transition. And so then I was hired by Deloitte US to join a new RFP they were bidding for under USAID and Power Africa. So Deloitte won the bid, and I got appointed as Deputy Chief of Party for the USAID and Power Africa West Africa Energy Program. I think Tayo mentioned that in the beginning. So in that role, I oversaw program management and operations for the project. 2 years later, in 2021, I became the chief of party for the program. And so I was now in charge of this 5-year, $74 million program. In this role, I oversaw a team of 150 people, and our mandate was to advance decarbonization, renewable energy investment, and policy reform across 23 countries. And as Tayo mentioned, I was also the first African in the world, male or female, to lead a USAID and Power Africa power program. Now that program ended in August 2024, so just last year. And by the end of it, we had mobilized over $9 billion in investments. And I was able to close about 2,576 megawatts of clean energy. I was able to connect 3.8 million households to electricity. We rehabilitated over 4,000 kilometers of cross-border power lines, and we did projects that reduced 3 million metric tons of CO2 emissions annually. And so obviously it was a huge success. Then I decided to take another year off of formal employment. So since August 2024, I did a bit of consulting for the Ministry of Energy in Saudi Arabia and with Global Citizen in New York. And 3 weeks ago, literally just 3 weeks ago, a new opportunity came up, the United Nations, under UN Ops in Vienna, Austria. And I got this role to work on the Sustainable Energy for All, managing donor coordination for Mission 300. So this is 6 months into my 1-year hiatus. And I took this role, even though I wasn't ready to go back to work yet, but I really wanted to work with Mission 300. It's a massive, ambitious initiative that is aimed at connecting 300 million people in sub-Saharan Africa to electricity by 2030. And this is being done in partnership with the World Bank, with the AFDB, the Rockefeller Foundation, and GIA. And it's something, I mean, if you're in the energy sector, you would have heard of Mission 300. It's such a massive initiative that's going to be very successful. And I really wanted to be a part of that. So I say, you know what, let me take, stop my holiday and then join this program. So I started with SC4 just 3 weeks ago. So that's kind of like my formal career, broken down over 15 years. But in addition to my work in energy, I do a lot of volunteer work. I used to be the legal advisor for Stand to End Rape in Lagos. And in that role with the British Council, we helped set up Nigeria's first ever sex offenders registry. And I also sit on the board of the University of Aberdeen. So I'm an independent governor and trustee of the University Court of Aberdeen. So literally part of the team that runs the university in the UK's higher education sector. So I'm actually in Europe right now. I'm in Amsterdam right now, actually, but just yesterday I was in Aberdeen for board meetings. And so all of this, I guess, when I'm thinking back on my career and what I would tell people, what has worked for me, taking risks has worked for me. I love I love an adventure. I love a challenge. If you say it's hard, I'm going to try and do it. Um, and this is part of just going somewhere. I mean, Equatorial Guinea, they only speak Spanish. I didn't know a single person who lived there. When I was getting ready to go, my parents thought it was human trafficking. They were like, why? They wanted to come with me. And I was 30 at the time. I'm like, no, my parents can't come with me on the first day of my new job. But it was just, I went somewhere I had never been and I didn't know a single person and I didn't speak the language because I saw an opportunity, you know? So you should explore and also explore opportunities outside of your regular ambits. I am a lawyer, but I have worked in fashion, I've worked in entertainment, I've worked in communications, I've worked in gender, and I'm working in power. And all of this is, I think everything has kind of led to each other and nothing has been wasted. There's no skill that has been wasted. I do a lot of public speaking around the world, and my work in communications helped that. I do a lot of work with women and women-based organizations. My work in gender has furthered that. Even, I would say, even working in fashion or doing stuff in fashion has taught me how to present myself in situations. So nothing, no skill is wasted, I believe, in building a full life. Be proactive. If you notice, I have a trend of joining a company and getting promoted to leadership almost immediately. And that's because I like to take charge. I never sit back and wait to be told what to do. Obviously, I listen to people around, but I'm very proactive. I'm very engaging. I'm very authentic, very forward in my approach. It's a bit aggressive, but it's worked for me. I'm also 6 feet tall. So I think being really tall helps to kind of establish and stamp your leadership authority. So I would get into a company and within a few months, I'm reorganizing things to how I like it. I'm telling people how things should be done. And within a few months, I get promoted to a leadership role. Again, if that's not your personality, stand down, no, but that's my personality and it works for me. Be very authentic. Like, I think a lot of my success comes from being exactly myself. I don't try to be anything else but who I am, and people respond to that. I think the previous speaker talked about being visible on social media. I learned very early how to harness social media to help my work. I talk about everything I do. I put that on. I mean, I started doing this. I know now it's popular, but I started doing this way back in 2010 of putting my work out there on Facebook, on Twitter, before LinkedIn was even invented. If I was speaking somewhere, I would do a video, I'll post it on social media, I'll talk about all the work that I do. And a lot of opportunities I've gotten is because people know who I am and what I do. You don't have to see my resume. When you hear Adaku Ufere, you don't have to see my resume. You don't have to have worked with me to know, kind of have an idea of what I do because I put so much information of my work out there. So that's so important. Networking, of course, you can't fault building relationships. They are the building blocks of success. The people a lot of the jobs I've gotten, I mean, it's because I have put myself in situations where people come across to me, whether it's attending, conferences or being part of different organizations or just reaching out to people and having a chat. And then something comes up. And that's, it's something you cannot discount. So I do want to say, I mean, I went to university in Nigeria. I went to the University of Nigeria, and a lot of people think you probably can't ascend to heights. If you have schooled in Nigeria, you didn't have a lot of international experience. But I mean, I've done it. So it is possible to be able to scale outside of your environment and be successful. So, I mean, think big. I think it starts from, again, I'm not a humble person. I don't subscribe to humility. So if you want to make $1 million, you have to imagine yourself being a millionaire in the first place. And so I think of myself as the most fantastic, wonderful person ever, and then I become it. So that's my journey and that's my story, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adaku. Thank you for really inspiring us, right? Really, 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 really mind blown by the depth of and breadth actually of your experience across Africa. I mean, the speaker bios, the things you see online don't do justice to, this journey. So it's very important to, hear it, hear how you've lived many lives. And that's very interesting and very inspiring. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And I am inspired, and I know that a lot of people here are as well, right? Yes, I really like that. I mean, something we share in common is that I also did not know that, Equatorial Guinea was a was a Spanish country until I got into my recent role. And I remember joining my first call and hearing Spanish, and I'm like, what's going on here? So, I mean, that's also something, right? People not knowing so much about countries here in Africa and the opportunities that are within this continent. And that's the thing, right? For young lawyers, everyone there's a jackpot wave. Everyone wants to go abroad, but there's so many opportunities here within Africa, within the continent here, that we could explore as well. And maybe one day another person listening to this conversation would also be the African Lawyer of the Year very soon. Thank you very much, Adako. So I'm going to call the next speaker. Um, our next speaker is uh, just a minute. Thank you. Our next speaker is, also someone I respect so much, and like people say, right? You is very popular, so a lot of people have heard of him. Um, but I mean, I don't even know where to start from in reading his bio. Um, so when I mention his name, right, and it's one of those things that when you go somewhere and you say, "Oh yeah, Reginald," that people say, "Yes, Dr. Reginald Aziza." Is our next speaker. And um, you know, just the name is inspiring, right? But I just want to say, right, that it's a pleasure to have you with us, Reginald. And I want to say thank you for, taking time out of your schedule to speak to us today. So brief speaker bio, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Reginald Aziza is a lawyer and a researcher, and he sits as an attorney in, um, you know, Chevron, one of, the world's largest leading oil and gas and integrated energy companies, right? For a while now, he has focused on oil and gas deep water operations, but just to latch on to the last speaker, very soon is going to be working with Equatorial Guinea business. Over 12 years of post-qualification experience, providing advisory on several high-value oil and gas, investment transactions, disputes, regulatory compliance issues across several countries, etc., etc. Owns an MCL degree, Master of Corporate Law, from the prestigious University of Cambridge, and a doctorate degree from the University of Oxford. He is, I mean, also before he later settled for in-house, he's worked with Olaniyan Ajayi in Lagos, HSF in London, Sherman and Sterling in Paris, now A&O Sherman and Sterling, thereabout. And, you know, is someone who, beyond all of these awards and accolades, is also very intentional about mentoring young people, making sure that people get it right, right? A lot of people here must have heard about the Reginald Aziza Law School Scholarship. And for me and some of the people I've interacted with, the scholarship seems like the extra, right? Because the mentorship access alone is enough. So what more to say than to have him share his insights with us on pathways for young persons in this profession as we journey into an energy future. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Reginald Aziza. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Omotayo, fun fact, Omotayo sits right beside my office, in Chevron. And first of all, good to be here. Sincere condolences again to Timothy, and I mean, these times are very difficult. And so, very sincere condolences to you, and thank you for still taking the time to join us here today. I feel like I have been set up by being put behind two very inspiring, I think is the word to use, people who spoke. As Motayo mentioned, I currently have the pleasure of supporting Chevron's deepwater business in Nigeria, but very soon to move to Equatorial Guinea and Cameroon. And I think as part of that, it was interesting listening to Adaku speak about setting up a lot of the entities I would now start engaging with. So that should be a lot of fun for me, and I may reach out to her for some help and guidance on that. But good to be here. I think for me, I have a few things I think that's currently shaping the energy future, which I could just run through very quickly, and then I could just share some thoughts really about my story coming in here. Of course, I'm speaking from the perspective of an upstream oil and gas lawyer for one of the largest integrated oil companies in the world. Now, having said that, I'm speaking and sharing my thoughts and perspectives. But if you look at the landscape in the last few years, a few things will have become very apparent. In the first place, we are currently not seeing a transition from traditional plays towards a greener energy future. That's the thing we hear a lot about. Now, the pace of that transition may be open for discussions because we notice ebbs and flows, sometimes influenced by geopolitics, sometimes influenced by crude prices, all that is going on around the world. But we can envisage a future in which there'll be a lot of focus on lower carbons, even if not lower hydrocarbons. And I think one of the things that we can do as young lawyers, just getting ourselves positioned into careers we can take advantage of these things, is to start learning the ropes about what that future will look like. Because I think even if you're to stay in the energy industry, the law you're likely to practice in 20 years' time is going to be different from the law you're currently practicing today, even if it's all called oil and gas law. Secondly, you can notice a transition in the key players in the industry. Some of you here would have had the pleasure of working on some of those transformational deals that have been announced in recent times. You can see a number of divestments, we see a number of new entrants into the industry. We can see a change in the structure of the state oil company. Now, all these things culminate into an industry where the players are changing dramatically. In particular, this year may be the first year in the history of Nigeria where the majority of production of hydrocarbon resources would be in the hands of domestic players rather than your traditional international majors. And what that has meant is you're moving from a system where you have a few concentrated players into a more dispersed play across several players. And just think about the opportunities that could create for young players trying to get into the industry. Third key wind, I think, shaping the industry right now would be regulatory. So there's been a lot of regulatory reforms in recent times. The PIA being passed in 2021, all the way through the raft of regulations that come up to regulate the industry subsequently. What we are seeing from that is increased focus on compliance requirements, increased reporting obligations. You have two regulators now rather than one, with several regulations coming up at a very quick pace. What that means is the demand for legal services and compliance work would only increase. It has increased dramatically in recent times. And I think should only increase as the regulators continue to settle into their positions and drive the regulatory landscape that they want. So that also in turn creates opportunities for young lawyers to take advantage of. And finally, Nigeria has so far been predominantly an upstream dominated country. The industry has really been upstream focused. But again, maybe starting with the PIA, you can see a shift towards the midstream and downstream, a dedicated regulator created for that, in addition dedicated regulatory resources and personnel. new rush of regulations. In fact, even if you to look at just the nomenclature of your instruments, moving from an oil lease to a petroleum lease, which gives the very clear intention that you're looking at the industry as from a more holistic perspective in today's world. And what that does is, if there is a lot more focus on the midstream areas, then things like refining, things like gas development, indeed, and I would say in maybe not as quickly as we may want, but as time goes along, even renewables start coming into clear focus, creating opportunities that we can all take advantage of. So those are some of the wins that I see shaping the industry in the future. In terms of taking advantage, if I could just share a bit of my story, and not certainly not as colorful as what we've seen today. So went to university and went to law school like everybody else. Well, I was very fortunate, I think, to come up with very good grades post board. So got into Orlando Ajayi, and I know that Kuneye is going to speak very soon, and maybe I could talk physically and see how things are going there. But got into Orlando Ajayi, worked there for a bit, went over to Cambridge for a master's, and then went into Herbert Smith Hills. In Cambridge, I did a master's in corporate law, went to Herbert Smith Hills and did litigation and arbitration. Left Herbert Smith Hills back into Orlando Ajayi into the finance and capital markets team. Left Orlando Ajayi to Sherman and Sterling in Paris to join the public international arbitration team there. And left Sherman and Sterling to get into Oxford to do a doctorate in securities law. So I joke around with people that at the time I was joining Chevron, I hadn't picked up a PSC or a GOA before. Like I hadn't picked up these documents. But what I banked on myself was adaptability, like the first speaker mentioned, and my ability really to, whichever play it is, whichever the area is, and whichever the country is, and perform to the highest possible standards, wherever it is, right? And so the first key tip I would then share is, just like me, I get a number of these messages and calls on LinkedIn and social media all the time, my mentorship programs and all. How do I break into this field and all? My story is that I didn't have experience coming in. What I had was a stupendous amount of grit and a lot of belief in myself and my ability to take the bull by the horn and to chart the path forward. It's not to say that if you have those, then those opportunities open themselves. So there's still a lot more at play, but I think those are very necessary things that you have to have. Take advantage of tools that are available to you now. I can't stress this enough. In today's world, a lot of the reasons why people know me is not because of the work I do in the oil and gas industry, although I've done a tremendous amount of work there. But I don't speak publicly as to the work I do in my current role. But there are always opportunities to make clear who you are, what you're about, and what value you can bring. Sit back, think very carefully in the area you find yourself in right now, and explore those opportunities and take advantage of them. And thirdly, finally, I think it's critical for you to enjoy what you do. For a lot of people working through law firms, and law firm life can be a very challenging one with big long hours or insane deadlines and all that. It's very easy to fall into this mix where work feels like work to you. And I think to the extent it does feel like work, and you're just doing it to get the paycheck, you can't take the fullest advantage of that place you find yourself in. So try to make work fun. Try to make work not to be work. That make it something that you enjoy. And I think if you're able to do that and do that well, you'll find that putting in the hours isn't just as painful, and going the extra mile again isn't as painful. And hopefully, with a lot of effort and dedication, you can rise to the top in what you want to be. That would be all for now. I'm sure we'll have in the Q&A opportunities to explore things in more detail and have to take questions then. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Reginald. Thank you very much. Thank you for telling us about, what Nigeria looks like now, in terms of the industry, the sector, and also sharing your personal journey. I mean, if there's something I take away from this is, not disqualifying yourself, right? Saying, oh, I don't think I'm experienced enough in this, right? A lot of us, right, especially young people, when you see opportunities, you're like, I don't think this is for me, even though you really want it, right? So do not disqualify yourself, right? This is a deep water expert who is telling you that before he got the role, he had not picked up a production sharing contract. Do you understand? So please, please, and please do not disqualify yourself. And we're going to get a bit more into that in the Q&A session. So please stick around for that. Very quickly, because our time is fast spent, I'm going to call on the next speaker, who is Chineye. Chineye is currently a managing associate with the Power and Infrastructure practice as Olaniyan Ajayi, and there she provides legal and business advisory services to clients within the energy sector, particularly in the renewable energy space, right? She has extensive experience advising on complex energy transactions, regulatory frameworks, and infrastructure projects. Also a thought leader, celebrated conference speaker, workshop trainer, all of that. She shares her insights constantly on our electricity policies, right? Clean energy transition and sustainable development, right? Uh, she is currently the vice president projects at the Energy Institute of the Young Professionals Network. This is amongst a host of other volunteer activities. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome onto the podium Chineye Ajayi. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Tayo, for having me, and for the YLF for having me as well. I almost feel like I'm also a participant hearing everybody's story. Thank you so much, Adaku and Reginald. I'm trying to remember the first name, for such a very insightful session. I mean, your stories, particularly Adaku, I think it's really inspiring to see some of the things you've done, and everyone. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. And I will just start by saying that one of the things that you need to know as young lawyers, as you start up in this profession, or rather as you begin and go along, is on a clear understanding of the problem. Because you must see yourself as a solution provider, a problem solver. And of course, you can't solve a problem that you don't understand, right? Of course, we know energy is the backbone of every economy, and we know by the statistics that over 600 million Africans, do not have access to electricity. But sometimes, it seems like just data. But every time I think about that, and I mean, they don't have access, meaning that they've never had an opportunity to, for most of them, they've never had an opportunity to see light bulbs in their houses, right? This is a real problem. And you can imagine the pain and the hardship these people go through. I'm saying this because these are one of the things that actually inspired me to get into the energy space, particularly power. I started off my journey not being in the energy space. In fact, I did a lot more about corporate commercial and all, but a time came in my life where I became very, very restless, and I wanted to do more. And I'm sharing this because I'm trying to drive at a point. I wanted to do more, and I began to ask myself, I'm a lawyer, but in what area can I actually apply my skill in order to be able to solve problems, in order to be able to impact more lives and add value, because I knew I could do more. And the more I thought about it, I've always had an interest in energy, but I never really, went further in it. But as I began to think about it, of course, pray about it, because I'm a firm believer in the fact that, we're all meant for a purpose by God, right? So, and I knew I needed to get into energy. And at the time, I did not know jack, like I was blank. I've heard about it. I've worked on a few things around energy, particularly power sector, but I didn't know anything about it. But one of the first things I tried to do was to understand the problem. And so one of the, and what I started to do was to read. What was the issue? I remember going back as far back as history of power in Nigeria or other, other countries, and all, just trying to understand what the problem is. And the more I understood the problem, the more I built interest. So one of the things, if you want to thrive in this sector, is interest, right? So interest is very critical, and you need to understand, that as having an interest, sorry, apologies, I think there's someone, yes. Having an interest is critical, but beyond interest is the passion and the purpose, right? Because passion and purpose is what to drive you and keep you resilient when there are challenges. Because whatever, I can imagine Adaku's story, there must have been challenges along the path for Reginald and every other person. There must be, there must have been challenges. But one of the things that kept them is understanding the reason why you're doing what you want to do, so that in the midst of those challenges, you're able to go through. So I had interest, and then there was also the passion for me, right? And there's also the aspect of knowledge. Again, you need to seek knowledge. And of course, we talked about various ways to get knowledge, both formal and informal knowledge. The truth is, I need to take responsibility for your life and for your career. A lot of young lawyers are in law firms waiting for their bosses to train them. Now, I mean, it's good to have an employer that will train you, but you'll be doing yourself a disservice to sit back and wait to be trained. No one ever trained me. Like, I went for free courses, many times I had to pay for it, right? And but I knew what I wanted. So you need to have a clear picture of what you want, and then you need to be able to be bold enough to take the step. Right. And the next thing you also need to know is the fact that you can't do it alone, right? And there must have been persons that have gone ahead of you that have done something similar. Look at their life. They may or may not necessarily be direct mentors to you, but you can look at who they are, what they've done, and mirror it. What are those trainings they've got? What are the areas they have put themselves out in, and then follow the trend. And of course, understand your unique story. Everyone is not going to be the same. We don't have the same path, but as you go along and learn, you begin to then identify different niches. So within the power sector, energy sector, right? I specialize in power, so that's why. So, but there are various opportunities. Finance, you can think about finance, you can think about technology. And I mean, for once, I know we are all lawyers, but just like what other speakers have spoken, for maybe take out your mind from the strict legal skill that you have and open up. Like, there are other skills that you have innate within you that you can bring to bear in whatever you're doing, and even solving a problem within the energy sector. So identify your niche, that area that interests you, and see how you can use that that skill, that capacity, that talent to be able to solve the problem within the energy sector, right? So that's very important. And finally, not to take our time, I'm sure we talked about already, you must be bold, right? You must believe in the fact that you have what it takes. Again, part of my story, it's good to have information when you start early, right? For me, I didn't have that opportunity, right? I was the triangular, lady in school. The school, maybe you go to class to hostel, and then I wasn't really that versatile. But at the point when I got information and I began to learn, I decided to take a bold step and go all the way. So it doesn't matter that I don't want you to feel, just in case you're on the call, I begin to feel overwhelmed. When am I going to start? How do I go from here? Let me share with you something you need to know. I started my energy journey just in 2021. Sometimes when I tell people, they don't believe me, right? But the truth of the matter is, it is not too late to start. It is not too late to start. Wherever you are, all you need to do is build the knowledge, be consistent. In consistency lies the power. Show up every day, right? I remember the first day I decided to put myself out in terms of writing on LinkedIn and all. I remember what I think for some of us maybe that have heard me speak before, I write and I run away. You know what I mean? Write and I run away. Okay, what am I going to say? What will people think? One of the mindset you need to have if you're going to go all out there and add value in the energy sector, you must be bold and care less about what people think. At the time, I didn't know so much, but what I started to do was to write nonetheless. And one of the things I noticed is that the more I wrote, the more knowledgeable I became, because I'm compelled every time to go back to research and come back again to, to write. So in summary, you need to be very bold. You're right. You need to be very bold about what you want to do. You need to let people know, no matter how good you are. Just imagine someone wearing a very beautiful wedding dress and they're putting a black cloth over it. Nobody sees it, no matter how expensive it is. So you need to show up consistently, be bold about who you are, connect with people, like what people have said, attend conferences. And again, wherever you are, please add value. You never can tell who is watching, right? I work at Olaniwajai currently, and for me, being in the energy space is more than just work where I earn money. It's something I'm passionate about. And at every opportunity I have to add value to solve, and in fact, my dream is to have an electrified Africa one day. And at any opportunity I have to contribute to that, whether I'm volunteering or not, it is very important to me. Volunteer. Not everything has to be paid. Okay, let me just share this one last experience. I remember when I started out in energy, I particularly wanted to grow my knowledge in renewable energy. I mean, I was already an associate partner at the law firm I was in before I joined in OA. So essentially, I was senior level, but I needed this knowledge, and I had to get to someone who, in quote, was my junior, but was really doing something very big in renewable energy. And I like, see, I want to intern with you, right? It seemed like, how could someone, but sometimes you have to get yourself low to get the knowledge that you need, right? I interned for months. I joined, provided service for free, but I can't tell you the amount of value I got from that knowledge and exposure. So in summary, be bold, know what you want, go for it. There'll be challenges along the path, I must tell you, but you must be resilient and make up your mind to go all the way. A lot of people are waiting on you. I'd like to say that at this point, a lot of people are waiting on you. There's something you have to add. Forget about the fact that a lot of people are in the energy sector. There is a unique value that only you can add, and people are looking up to you to do that, okay? So I'm rooting for you all, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ina, and thank you for the very electrifying, wake-up call, right? This is a wake-up call, ladies and gentlemen, right? If you've been, doubting yourself, thinking about it, do I have what it takes? Do I need to get what it takes, right? And I guess that's what Ina is saying. If you think you don't have what it takes, then it is your responsibility to find it, right? So volunteer, be bold, come out of your shell. Come out of your shell because you don't know what the future holds for you. Thank you very much, TNA. And um, it's my pleasure to call on our final, speaker for today before we quickly rush through our Q&A session. And our final speaker is also very interesting, very inspiring. Um, Endurance, thank you for joining us. Just very quickly on endurance anatomy with the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, part of the people who were, integral to the NMPC, implementing the Petroleum Industry Act that came in 2021 and, doing the reorganization from Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation to what we now have now as NMPC Limited. I mean, he also serves currently as legal advisor to NMPC Downstream Investment Services. And that's something that interests me because, like Reginald said, right, it's part of the things that would shape, Nigeria's energy future is this renewed focus on the midstream and downstream sector. So we have someone here who works, with a downstream unit of NMPC. And apart from that, I mean, very interestingly, Endurance is also a serial entrepreneur, is the founder of a venture capital company with investments in several VC, funds and interest in startups such as MoneyPoint, Wave, Payforce, MV Exchange, and others. And he was a lawyer with Alex before he joined before he moved to NNPC, he has also worked at Wally Parsons Nigeria, Delta Afrique Engineering Limited, and also very interesting because this is the school that is dear to my heart. Is a first class graduate of the University of Calabar, and currently, goes back to Calabar from time to time to teach oil and gas law on a pro bono basis. The member of the Association of International Energy Negotiators, and does creative writing. And in fact, when you see him, this is a creative. So we're very, very happy to have you here, Dorrance. Thank you and welcome.
Thanks. Sorry, Omotayo. So being set up to speak after Reginald, Adaku, Tommy, and Chineye is either a huge honor or the beginning of a very funny joke. Because after they've said everything they've said, the question on my mind is, Tayo, and your sales you want me. The best way to go about this is to offer perhaps a different perspective from what has been offered so far. I like to tell a lot of my very close friends that law is a cheat code. Law is a cheat code. Your legal career will give you opportunities to sit in rooms that you would ordinarily not have or may not have had an opportunity to sit in, except perhaps if you're offering some sort of advisory, perhaps from the financial perspective. But law is such a cheat code that, as a lawyer, depending on where you choose to specialize anyway, but as a lawyer, you are pretty critical to how well society does. You would sit in rooms and hear perspectives on businesses that perhaps you don't even have the capital to start. But some of those conversations and some of those perspectives that people who have gone before you would offer in those boardrooms where certain decisions are being taken might open your minds to the possibilities that are all around you that you may not have immediately recognized if you didn't have the opportunity of sitting in such rooms. I think that I've been a bit lucky and blessed to be in many of those rooms. It is exciting and pretty humbling. A lot of times when you sit in rooms, sometimes as an observer anyway, or sometimes as an active participant, as a catalyst, where certain decisions that shape the life of our country are being taken. It's not something that some of us take lightly at all. I've been introduced. I've had the course of being an energy and natural resources lawyer for some time. I like to credit ALEX with that, with the responsibility of making me hone these skills that have been pretty useful over the last couple of years. I had a chance of working very closely with Mr. Soja Ogbade, who is a leading energy and natural resources lawyer in the country. And he was also the marketing partner at ALEX. And because he took me under his wings as a mentee, these days the relationship is way more than a mentor-mentee relationship. It's more of a father and son relationship. I shouldn't be saying this out here, but every single time he is in Abuja, even when he does not want it, I force my driver to go pick him up from the airport and stay with him for as long as he needs to stay in. That gets to show the depth of investment he made in me and who I am today. I left ALEX after a while to go run my very first startup called LawYap. I was running LawYap for some time. It's a legal tech startup. I was running it for some time when some of the activities I had carried on whilst I was at ALEX came to catch up with me, namely participating in the NNPC recruitment process. I was busy minding my business, doing my thing, and then the offer came on Valentine's Day on a certain year. It was a nice love letter, but I was a bit torn between accepting it or just, focusing on what I was doing. I had conversations with a couple of friends and, some family members, and I told them I was considering turning the offer down. And of course, you would expect that everybody would look at me like I had run mad, right? So the simple reason for me was I thought it was really going to distract me from what I had set my sights on, which was growing LawYap to be what I hoped that it would be. With the benefit of hindsight, I'm grateful that I took the opportunity because what was LawYap has now become XP, that's Xavier Paisley, with a lot of directorates, with several startups under it, with a lot of very exciting minds that are running all of those businesses, and I'm making a bit of a difference in the various sectors in which XP operates. And one of those things that I am very, very proud of that the opportunity to join NNPC did for me was the opportunity of putting together a lot of like minds within the energy sector, but then to begin to work toward preserving our wealth. And that was what led to us founding Eagle Venture Capital, which is an LP syndicate. We've made investments in quite a number of VC funds over the last couple of years. There used to be a time when I used to brag that perhaps there was no startup in Nigeria that had raised some serious money from Nigerian VCs that didn't have a bit of our money in them. And in putting that together, we had to come up with some pretty exciting legal structures that could work for us and optimize our exposure to or non-exposure to taxes. That syndicate today is about 300 plus or close to 400 people strong. That eventually morphed into another syndicate, which has been focusing on making investments in real estate opportunities across Nigeria and even in the UK. That particular syndicate now is about maybe 900, 1,000 people strong. And that equally gave rise to one of the solutions that XP is building called the Land Bank, which is basically to your real estate what your bank application is to your money. So the Land Bank, once it's fully functional, will warehouse all of your real estate interests, keep track of their valuation. And we're currently looking at building financial products tied to the value of your assets, such that you're able to access a credit card that's tied to your equity in the Land Bank, which allows you to draw down on up to maybe 10% of your equity in any of your assets. And then we're not just stopping there. We're looking to securitize all of those credit card debts, find a stock market that will take them and trade them there. Away from that, being in the energy sector also opened my mind to a couple of lapses that I thought we had. And that gave birth to a startup we jovially initially called Wherefore Day. And it came out of a lot of frustration, where Nigeria was having a lot of energy crisis around 2021, 2022. And we could never tell which retail station had petroleum products. So we decided to build something that will show you which retail station have products, how much they're selling for, the length of queues there, the number of pumps they're selling with. We then went on to say, okay, besides bringing people to the retail stations, how then can we ensure they can actually pay for petroleum products? So we're now building in something called energy credits, which would allow you access, some funds to purchase petroleum products, and then you pay, of course, at the end of the month. We are also looking subsequently to introduce an energy futures trading platform on FuelPlug. FuelPlug has given rise to another startup called Fuel Rescue, and we've just paid for at least 2 browsers in China that would allow us begin to haul petroleum products to the comfort of your home. Just basically what Carrefour and there's a second platform, I think that's Fuel Body, what they do in Dubai, which is basically to bring PMS back, to your homes and offices, of course, in a safe way. We got that license sometime last year, and we know we'll be pioneering it in the country. But the idea is just create the demand, ensure that it works, and then ensure that other people have the opportunity to equally benefit from it. With the NBA-YLF, I had the pleasure of meeting with Timothy and his team And we're currently having conversations, and I hope those conversations become fruitful. We're having conversations around building an access to justice platform, which would ensure that people simply are able to file matters in court or even initiate arbitration proceedings from the comfort of their homes in a pretty seamless and less formal way than what we currently have. Because again, when you look all around you, there is a serious depth of a sense of justice in society. And I see that Tayo's screen is up, so perhaps my time is almost done. But I'll just wrap up with this. The thinking generally with respect to access to justice and dignity initiative in Africa, which we shorten to Ajadi Africa, is that we want people who live in Nigeria to be able to have a sense of justice. You have incidents where you ask your mechanic to fix your car, you pay him 200K, 300K, he doesn't do the job, he goes away with the money, and probably doesn't take your calls anymore. And because 200K, 300K is too small for you to stress yourself with, a lot of times you leave those matters to God. And there are a lot of such things occurring in our society on a daily basis that people generally feel that we live in a lawless society. But, with the support of the NBA-YLF, perhaps we might be able to change that narrative. The reason I chose not to fully pigeonhole myself into a speech on energy and natural resources is simply that I want you guys to understand that what we've been given in terms of the knowledge of the law and our certificates is a gift. It's a gift that not a lot of humanity has. And that gift can be used in so many different ways. It could be used in the course of practice. It could be used in the course of making commercial decisions for your businesses. It could be used in the course of innovating. The one advantage that I have, perhaps over a few people who might be innovating in some of the sectors that I am innovating in, is that I also have a bit of a modest knowledge of the law. And there are certain things that I can, on my own, completely ensure do not breach any compliance rules before they even come out to, or before I even express them to certain people I need to bounce that idea off of. And so I would like to, encourage all of us this morning. You've had different perspectives from Tomi, from Chinaya, from Adaku, from Reginald, and myself that Tayo set up. I'm hoping that these perspectives would allow you maybe go back, take some time to re-examine yourself, your life, your view on how possible some of your dreams are. I guess what Adako has told all of us this morning is that you are enough, your dreams are valid, and that there isn't anything holding you back. I have learned quite a lot from all four of them. I guess that's the beauty of being able to go last, even though I still will not forgive Tayo for doing that. But I've heard quite a lot, and I've learned quite a lot, and I hope that we would have more opportunities to learn more during the Q&A session. So, Tayo, thanks again.
Thank you very much, Endurance. Thank you. But even with the accusations, I am actually very, very glad with the tech angle. I am glad that you mentioned all of these beautiful things where, for a lot of people, they don't think that there's space for tech at this within the traditional energy space, right? But I think that for people listening, getting, to know all of these beautiful initiatives, I'm sure that you would have, inspired someone here to think broader and think about all of these things as well. So thank you very much, Endurance. Thank you very much to all of the speakers for sharing, inspiring us, right? To put it simply. And because we're pressed for time, we're going to move straight into Q&A. So if you've been listening and you have questions, please type them into the chat window. Currently, I know Domitila has been our most engaging audience, so she's clearly leading. If you want to catch up with her, please use the chat window and type in your questions and we'll take them, right? So I'll give us a second to do that. But I mean for the speakers, I think I would like to do another icebreaker at this point and ask I have quite, I have some serious questions, but I'll start with an unserious question, which is if you're not currently a lawyer, what do you think you would be, right? So Adako, do you think you'll be managing Korede Bello or, you know, a fashion designer? What do you think you would be if you're not a lawyer?
To be honest, I think I've done everything that I want to do. Like, I don't think there's anything. I mean, I love fashion, obviously. I did that. I've written for fashion magazines. I've written for Genevieve, for Bella Niger. I had the fashion blog. Like, I won Nigerian Blogger of the Year, the first ever Nigerian Blog Awards. So outside of energy, law, everything, I think I've done literally. And that is what I was saying before in the sense of how I live my life is I feel like I have it's one life. Like in Igbo, we say uwa bo fumbia, meaning like you only live once. So every single
Yep.
thing I want to do, I do it because I'm not going to get another chance. So if I run a lawyer, like that's it. So maybe fly planes, but I don't know about that right now. But like literally everything else, I'm good. I've done everything.
Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. Thank you. Chine, what do you think? What would you be? Chine, you're muted if you're speaking. Um, yeah, actually. So maybe we'll come back to Chine. Reg, I don't know. Would you be an athlete?
Yeah, I had my longest ever run today, so feeling quite upbeat about it. No, I think I probably would be an economist. I just
Mm,
and maybe it's a shame that I haven't really tried to go in that direction yet, but um, the world revolves on economics, and that would have been an absolute pleasure to do. Yeah.
interesting. Another very serious. That's how you know scholars, right? Nothing fun. Nothing fun about economics, please. Thank you. Tommy, what do you think?
I would, if I wasn't a lawyer, I think I would have loved to work in the human resources space, talking to people, advising people. I love gist, hearing people's stories. I would have loved to
Mhm.
work in the human resources space. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Endurance?
Okay, so I think that let me come out full disclosure. I never set out to become a lawyer. So I like to call myself an accidental lawyer. I wanted to become a medical doctor. It was in my second year after trying JAM twice for medicine and studying marine science that I made up my mind to do law. Now, why I say this is that at the same time, I was in the Cross River State Children's Parliament. I was doing a lot of work with lawyers. And then I was reading a lot of John Grisham books. So John
Lovely.
Grisham actually made me become a lawyer, not necessarily because I was excited about law per se, but because I was also doing a lot of creative writing. But I also realized that there weren't a lot of Nigerian authors who were writing legal thrillers. So I set out to become a lawyer so I could have some knowledge of the law like John Grisham, so I could begin to write legal thrillers. So I guess if I wasn't a lawyer, I'd probably just be a creative writer.
Wow. Thank you. That's very interesting. Yes, I think a lot of people were inspired by John Grisham as well. And I understand that, fun fact, this man has a new book out this year, and this is a 70-year-old man. So if you're a fan of John Grisham, yeah, there's a new book out that we can check out. I don't know if Chineye is here. Um, I don't think so. But Chineye, do you want to go? Uh, yeah, the mic is muted. Um, but I think the reason why I asked this question, and I wanted it to be, you know, just to talk about how, just to latch on to what Endurance said about how law really allows you to do a lot of things, right? It's one of those cheat codes, like you said, where if you're a lawyer, you're not really pigeonholed to just one path, right? So you can be a lawyer and be so many things, right? And be so many things in terms of, things you're passionate about, but in terms of career progression as well, right? I was asking someone, because I see, within these organizations, I see a lot of lawyers within, for example, the supply chain functions, the HR functions, right? And I was asking if there was ever a time that, a lawyer was within the commercial function as well. And I heard that yes, right? So despite the fact that that's a place full of engineers and people who, do the oil and gas business, right? There's room for lawyers here as well, right? So I guess the point is for if you're here and you have um, you know, other passions apart from law, you should not see law as a limitation, right? So thank you. And I think we just move to some of the questions we have. And I think the first one I have is there's been a lot of conversation today around, pivoting, um, transitioning, adaptability. And I wanted to hear from the speakers, just very quickly, do you think that as a young person, do you think one can survive without being multifaceted, right? Do you think that to survive in the near future as a young lawyer, you need to be thinking of, you know, not just being linear, being able to do more than one thing, right? I don't know if this is a generalist versus specialist kind of conversation, but what I wanted to ask is, if you were looking back and looking at what the future holds, do you think that if there's any lawyer here listening to listening to you, the speaker, are you telling them that you need to be multifaceted, right? You need to be thinking of the next thing to pivot to adapt to. You need to go beyond being a lawyer, right? I think, Tommy, I don't know if you want to start us off on that end.
Yes, thank you. So, I had said thank you, Matayo. I had said earlier that the industry is evolving. And not
Yes.
only, even the African market landscape is evolving. So as lawyers, we also need to evolve. We need to know something about AI governance. We need to know something about ESG compliance. We need to know something about energy security. We need to be able to
Data protection, all of that.
data protection,
Yes.
all of that, to be able to advise your clients or even to be future ready. You also need to know and understand how it all comes together. It makes you wholesome. It makes you whole.
Yeah.
You may not know everything about it, but you should know something about it, and you should be able to can be put on the spot to give some advice, and you should be able to say something about it. You
Yeah.
can come back later to do like a paper or an opinion, but you should be able to say something about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. But just before you go, you mentioned that earlier on you had an opportunity to pivot to something else that would have broadened your technical competence. Do you mind sharing with us what that was, what function that was, so that there's any other person considering it?
Okay, so
Um,
yes. So it was to work as an executive assistant to the MD at the time. That would have situated me in the technical space. Um, would have also situated me, in hindsight, it would have also situated me in the commercial space. So I mean, I now had to do catch up later, but if I had taken that on early enough, that would have helped my journey. But I'm happy where I am. I mean, I'm
Lovely,
grateful,
lovely.
but
No,
yeah.
no, thank you. Thank you very much. And I really, really appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, there's a popular example Obong Gideon, who was Tony Elumelu's executive assistant and is now CEO of Airs Technologies. So, I mean, yes, being taking up roles where you get to work directly with a leader of an organization helps a lot in improving your skills, your knowledge, because you're really the one doing everything, setting up the calendar, setting up the meetings. You're the one who sees what the CEO does on a day-to-day basis. So thank you very much for that. Um, Adako, so what do you think about the sort of being multifaceted and you know, being a generalist in a world where people still want to have experts, subject matter experts?
So I speak as a multifaceted person who's done different things, and I've seen the value it's brought to my life. Because if I trace a straight line from starting out, in ACAS in Lagos as a maritime lawyer to where I am now managing hundreds of millions of dollars in renewable energy and electricity access projects, it's only because I diversified a lot. I tried different things. Because like when I was working in Equatorial Guinea and I was doing production sharing contracts, every time I was doing one in a different country, be it Namibia, Sao Tome, Uganda, I would travel to the country. I would live there for 3 months. I'd go help the engineers with their seismic. I'll go to the platforms. I learned project management on the job while I was drafting and reviewing a contract. And that led to me now being able to manage projects myself, even though I'm a lawyer. So I'm always in favor of doing as much as you possibly can. Again, not everyone has it in them, but if you do, I mean, it's just laziness that's holding you back, then like you need to stop that laziness and get with the program. So like, the speaker just said before, the landscape is evolving too fast and you will get left behind. Subject matter experts are a thing of the past, I believe. You can't just do one thing now. Again, within your personal ability. If it's not in you, please stick to what you know. But if you know you do have that spark, learn about so many different things. Even like when you say even with AI, I met a lawyer for Snapchat, and her regulation was for the flower crowns, what's the thing, the filters that people put on, and her job was literally figuring out the laws to control that. And that is something you can't even envision. Like, how do you get from, law school, and it's a Nigerian lawyer, from law school to Snapchat? And that's because she had done some courses in AI. She's not an engineer, she's not a scientist, she can't physically do the work, but because she understood the science behind it, she had the skill to review those contracts and she got a job in this international company. So I'm always in favor of learning as much as you can about so many different things. You never know how it will help your journey.
Thank you. And just to really, talk more about that, especially talking about having a very assertive personality and, getting into a room and taking charge. What would you say to that person who is here, probably withdrawn, right? Probably in a shell. I don't know if you have tips for overcoming that, or I just want to be, invisible, right? I just want to do my work and go home and, not necessarily, cause any chaos, right? What would you be saying to that person?
I would say do it regardless. I know it's hard to believe, but I mean, I used to be still am quite a shy person. When I was younger, I was very brilliant. So I was always, put in front of things, but I wasn't necessarily comfortable with it. And again, like I said, like I'm 6'1", but I got to about 5'10", 5'11" when I was 13 years old. So imagine me, the tallest person everywhere you go. All I wanted to do was hide because I didn't want to be noticed. And I think a lot of my confidence came from my mother. My mother thinks I am the greatest thing alive. Everything I do is wonderful. Adaku is amazing. Like, she overhypes me that I started to believe it, So she did a lot in bolstering my confidence. I remember when I had, she wanted me to learn public speaking. She put me on Speak Out. Do you remember that Nigerian show that was on NTA? So I was one of the Speak Out kids, She put me to the forefront of different things and literally forced me to take charge. And because she had that much belief in my ability, I started to believe in myself. So it became a mental thing where I would psych myself up before I get on a stage. My nerves are in a knot. Like my husband will be like trying to calm me down. I'll be doing the deep breathing, but then I try to envision myself as this, like I said, as larger than life, as this wonderful person. I practice my speeches before every speech. Before I go into a room, before I go into a meeting, I literally write out a script of what I want to say and I run through it. I read it out to myself. I record it as a voice note. I'll listen to it on my way to wherever I'm going. And so I just keep hearing my voice in my head constantly, constantly, constantly. And so when I step into that room, literally I'm surrounded by myself. And so that gives me the confidence to be like, because when I enter a room, I'm not thinking, oh, will they like me? Or will they think what I'm saying is wonderful? When I'm entering a room is like, would I like them? Like to me, they're auditioning for me. And again, it's a mindset. I didn't always used to think like that, but I had to reorient my thinking into being that I'm the one stepping on this stage. They have to prove themselves to me. I'm fantastic. I'm great as I am. Again, not always a good thing, but literally that's what gets me through life.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Domitilla, as well. I mean, I want to move to Reginald now, and I think the question I have, you know, when I talk to, folks, people coming out of law school, thinking a career in oil and gas, I'm not sure because isn't there this whole thing about renewable energy? Isn't oil and gas going to be obsolete in the near future? I think a lot of people either underestimate or overestimate what that future looks like. So I don't know if you could help us in very, clear terms, tell people. I mean, maybe we're going to get to a point where oil and gas is or fossil fuels is no longer the in thing, but in terms of building a career for the next 10, 15, 20 years, given that that is our most important resource in Nigeria and probably sub-Saharan Africa, how do you start merging these two or, traditional energy sources versus renewable energy sources and building a career in one? What would you say to that?
So I'm speaking, coming from a purely career perspective now. There are massive debates around the world on this topic. Now let's think about this from a chemical perspective. Oil and gas are hydrocarbons, right? Um, Hydrocarbons will mean that the molecules are made of hydrogen and carbon. One thing we know from the science clearly is that the hydrogen is good. Indeed, water that we drink is a chemical composition made of hydrogen and oxygen. In today's world, we are exploring ways of running, maybe not maybe even more than just in exploration phases. We will start rolling out commercially viable vehicles running on hydrogen, right? So the hydrogen in your hydrocarbon molecules are not a bad thing. Simultaneously, what we are trying to do around the world is to reduce carbon. So what we are doing is to reduce carbon emissions. So if you think about it from that perspective, you can envisage a world where you have lower carbons, but not necessarily lower hydrocarbons. Therefore, when thinking about a career today, to my mind, by all means, look at the world is going to move into, it has always been, but the energy mix is going to be a lot more important as we continue down technology, evolution, and all that. More sources will be introduced into the energy mix. Some of the sources of energy today will become even more important tomorrow. But what it is doubtful you're going to see is the elimination of an energy source, right? And we think about a second thing to just layer onto the energy mix conversation. We can fairly project that the energy needs of the world would only increase in the future. And that is going to be primarily driven by emerging markets and developing countries. because now the woman who is in my village in Delta State, who previously has never had access to electricity, or to a gas cooker, and has been cooking with charcoals
Firewood.
and
Yeah.
firewoods, may get into a place where she now has access to electricity and to a gas cooker. You have more energy, although cleaner. Now, if the energy needs of the world increase, as we would fairly project them to, even if you were to use the same percentage-wise, in terms of percentage, if you use the same amount of hydrocarbons in that energy mix, the world will need to produce more to keep up, right? So when you think about a career spanning the next 15, 20 years, take into account what you are doing, where the world is today, but be mindful about the fact that some conversations may be over bloated. Some of them may not truly represent how quickly the world is evolving. Um, but by all means, ensure you are firmly grounded in as many facets of the energy mix as possible to ensure that you have a well-rounded career. Mm.
Thank you. Thank you, Reginald. Thank you very much. I mean, we have a hard stop for 12, but I think we'll take two more questions. I think one is here directed at endurance from Tawakal Seni. And, it says, could you please elaborate on the specific challenges you must have faced in delivering these exciting legal solutions, particularly given Nigeria's unique regulatory environment, endurance? What are those challenges and, maybe how you overcome them very quickly? Thank you.
Okay, so I didn't get the question completely. So challenges with respect to what exactly?
The legal solutions that you spoke about in your
Okay.
presentation, and yeah.
Okay, so I think that for you to make introductions into a space that is as conservative as the legal profession, you should be ready for a lot of pushback. Initially, when we started out with Lawyer, and we were, of course, sharing our perspectives on what we thought the future of work looked like, including at the time we called them virtual associates, including the opportunity for people, for young lawyers to work as virtual associates for several law firms at a time, provided each law firm offered that opportunity. People thought that was outlandish, and this was at a time when remote work wasn't commonplace in Nigeria. It was way pre-COVID. We started building Lawyer sometime toward the end of 2017. So you would understand the amount of pushback we would get, and especially when we started touting the idea of having court proceedings occurring virtually. Way before COVID, we had a solution we had ideated called Courts by Lawyer, which was an end-to-end solution for virtual court proceedings, including taking into consideration nuances around law practice in Nigeria. Of course, we did get a lot of pushback. And one of the things I have come to learn in the course of trying to get regulators on board some of the things that we do is sometimes maybe you don't need those regulators or those persons at the top. Maybe you are not looking at it from a completely holistic perspective. I'll give you one example. This is not completely tied to our legal tech solution. So we have another called Panic Alerts, which was a portion of Lawyer App initially. So it transmits a live audio of your surroundings as well as your real-time location in emergency situations to your emergency contacts and then law enforcement. Now, initially, when we started building that solution, our plan was to go meet, of course, the IG of police, the head of the FRSC, the head of the Federal Fire Service, and what have you. And of course, given the very interesting nature of Nigeria and the fact that we weren't being handheld by perhaps people who had access to these people. Those cold proposals, of course, didn't see the light of day. But the more we thought about it, the more we realized we actually didn't need these people. We rather needed the men and officers themselves. So if the men and officers of the police force see panic alerts as an opportunity for them to enhance their policing, and we also see it as we also see the perspective that yes, perhaps we could also financially reward them to ensure that they are active on the platform. We could actually have more and more of these people providing the kind of services that we need. So of course it is challenging. I'm not going to kid you. But my experience has been as much as you can achieve with private sector partners, push for that because they're typically more responsive. We've just as a final word, we've had that we've made way more progress with respect to one product we started building about 3 months ago called Health Sure, which is a primary health insurance aggregator. You know, we've made way more progress in about 3 months than we had made with respect to certain applications we're building over a couple of years, simply because we decided to partner with private sector partners who could still offer us some of the opportunities that we were looking at public sector partners for. So that's a perspective I thought I should offer.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Endurance. Final question before we round off for Chineye. Sorry, thank you. I guess the question is, I mean, the aspiration for Energy Future Nigeria when it comes to power is that, we have stable electricity in Nigeria, right? And I know that there's going to be a lot that needs to be put in place for that to happen in terms of infrastructure, in terms of financing, in terms of development. I don't know if you could help us, characterize what that looks like and some of the key places where lawyers can position themselves for that future in power. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Tayo. So the problems with the Nigerian power sector is a very interesting one. So sometimes it feels like we've taken, like I think I said that earlier, we take one step forward and probably many steps backward. But it's good to know that we are evolving, and we know that we are also identifying what the problems are. And so what I would say in terms of young lawyers, what you can do is to, again, understand the market, understand what the challenges are, and probably also build your skill. For those of us that have opportunity on working on power transactions, it's important to also understand the business side of things. Think about how clients generally, whether you're working for, whether you're working for a financier or you're working for a project developer, whoever it is you're working for, clients always like it when you have an understanding of the business side of things, not just the legal aspects of it. They appreciate it a lot more. So I would advise that beyond the legal aspect of the energy sector, the laws, the regulations, try to understand the technical part of it, understand the business side of it. That makes you a holistic advisor. Right. So most of the challenges we have are around infrastructure, particularly for Nigeria and of course many African countries. So it's important that you also begin to think around this research. There are a lot of other countries are doing a lot of things around infrastructure development, and see how you can ideate solutions you can even present to people. Write about them, right? And you can never tell who can reach out to. Let me give an instance. I remember writing on something around infrastructure and the opportunities within the transmission infrastructure. And someone reached out and we got talking. The person is not a lawyer, but one of the things he's indicated interest is in making investments in infrastructure space. I've been able to provide that advice. But beyond that, I also know the person needed financing. Even though I'm a lawyer, I don't own a bank. But building my network, I've been able to connect that person to a potential financier, right, who could actually finance or provide some funding for that project. So you see, you're not just a legal person, but you're also contributing to the technical and the business aspect of it. So again, the problems are still there. We're making progress, but you as a lawyer can actually make a difference by being a lot more innovative, creative in providing the solutions that you offer your clients. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to all of our speakers, Tommy, Adaku, Reginald, Endurance, Chineye, once again. We're really, really grateful. We've gotten so much in the past 2 hours that, reading about your profiles online would not do any justice to. We're really grateful. We do not take this for granted at all. Thank you for sparing your time. And on that note, I'd like to invite the Secretary of the Governing Council of the Young Nigeria Bar Association's Young Lawyer Forum, Mr. Agbo Etaba, to help us, give closing remarks and officially close out this session. Thank you, everyone, for having me. Thank you, and God bless. Mr. Etaba, please.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
You're muted.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Amotayo, for having me. But on behalf of the Governing Council of the Nigerian Bar Association Young Lawyers Forum, we extend our gratitude to the speakers who joined us this morning to share insights on the future of energy in Nigeria. We're particularly grateful for the fact that you guys made that time to share your experiences and share insights with young lawyers. We are grateful because we know how tight your schedule may be, but you made that time this morning to see how you can inspire the younger generation of lawyers on how we can grow our practice, particularly as it relates to the energy field of practice. So we are grateful. And to also say that as a council, we would always be looking up to the speakers from time to time to see possible ways that we can collaborate and, of course, develop our young lawyers as long as the issue of energy is concerned. So also to thank the Committee on Energy and Sustainability for putting up this webinar. We appreciate everyone's effort to make this webinar a success, and to say that as a council, we are committed to ensuring that the Young Lawyers Forum grows from strength to strength. Thank you, everyone, for making our time to be here. We are grateful. We look forward to many more opportunities that we all have. Thank you. We are grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Just to note that Domitila Onwafo was our most engaging participant. So, courtesy of the NBA-YLF Sustainability and Energy Committee Chair, would try and provide the data that she used to join the session. So, Domitila, please send me a message or an email, and we'll take it offline. Thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye. Yes, bye.